I started in 1958, August 1958, and I retired in November 83. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, 25 and 3 months or whatever, yeah. It all started with a blizzard that we had, I think, I don't have any, 40 inches of snow or something, and they declared a state of emergency. Yeah, it's a snow emergency, and what they did at the time, they called everybody in to come back to the firehouse, every shift. At the same time, it was chaos. There was nobody that was leading. And it tried to work out where the officer was in charge in that particular shift. Well, the guys were taking off, and they're going to Central Avenue, going in with a bar, and they're going to have a few. And, you know, that's what was going on. But some of them spent 5 days there. I spent 3 days. I drove in from up here. I had a van at the time, but a snowmobile in case I got stuck to make it over there. And there's a good point here. Herbie Young, who lived in Schoharie, drove his snowmobile from Schoharie to the firehouse, the Engine 1, across fields and over fences. There was no roads, nothing. So while we're there, the cops are there, and they're in there, and they've got a snowmobile and a toboggan, and they're supposed to help us out. Then they're telling us they're getting time and a half. We're getting zip. So that really got the thing started. We started thinking about it. And there was a lot of chatter, and I guess that some action was brought up against the city. I forget who brought it up. But then right around that very same time, Mike brought this up. So hey, here we go. This is what we got to do. We held a couple of meetings. The first meeting at the Marine Corps Hall in West Albany. It wasn't our shift, another shift, but the next shift was ours, and we made sure we were there. And then when we were there, we all voiced our grievances, and my pet peeve was being acting officer for so long. I'm not alone. If you look at the 100-year yearbook, just about every officer in there's an acting officer, including the battalion chiefs. They're acting officers. So the city is getting by not paying us for our jobs. They're getting by not offering any promotions. I was on the job either 11 or 12 years before I was able to take a promotion. It's only because we forced them to make us to have an exam for lieutenants and captains. And that's how basic. Oh, I'd say about 12 years, 11, 10, 12 years. Well, I think it was 10 years at least, because at the Union Hall that night, I voiced my opinion. I said, the way I see it, and I said, the city owes me about $10,000, which, I had figured out. And the guy said, yeah, it's true, all of us are like that. Yeah, and we got nothing for it. And they could, well, as I found out, later on, yanked me right out of there, and you're done with this acting job, and you don't get anything for it, But it wasn't fair. It just wasn't fair, no. The next step is, like I was saying, when Mike mentioned that they want to have a meeting and discuss all the grievances, and we're thinking about not a union at the time. We're just getting together, and we went to this Union Hall. And at the Union Hall, like I said, this group that I gave you the list here, we all agreed that we wanted to do something. So what we did, some people mentioned union, some people said, well, the minute we mentioned union to the city, they slammed the door on us. So we turned it around and said, it's going to be an association. So as an association, they didn't slam the door so hard, but they still kept the door shut, They just didn't want anything to do with losing control of us, where they could just use us like little puppets. That's the whole thing. Yeah. Then we try to get it going, get the ball rolling. In the meantime, IAFF come in, International. So the board, we discussed it, and well, we don't know, we don't want to. So at this point, we don't want them in there. So what we want to do is this on our own. Well, on our own, we were just spinning our wheels. So Mike, myself, and I think I must have been Fish or something, and we decided, let's have a meeting with International. We got the International, And they came in and they said, we will not run your union, but we'll be there for backup. We will do anything you want as far as advertising, or anything. So they're going to support us. And so we took it for a vote, and it was approved. And so we got International in with us. That got us, now we're getting some attention. Now the city's paying attention to us. We're no longer just a little group of, they call themselves association. Well, now we're part of a union. So they've got to start paying attention to us, so, which they did. Fish and Richard Fish and not Privedera, but what the heck was it? Yeah, McDermott was secretary treasurer, and then Nick Farinella. Nick Farinella was, I think Nick was the first vice president. Fish was second, I was third. McDermott was secretary treasurer, so that was our board. Yeah, we had a meeting. We took it we took it to the membership, and they said they gave us the right to go ahead and do whatever we had to do, and it was brought to the city's attention that we had the International with us, and some of these photos you probably see in here. When the new span of the Dunn Bridge opened, the governor was there, Rockefeller was there, and we were having our problems there. But the representatives from the International, they were there. I got some pictures of that. And they were there and to back us up. The president of it, and then there was Jimmy King, he was from over there. And Frank Palumbo, I think he's from New York. He's a New York City firefighter. He was there. I think we had 3 people. They did back us up, but they did not get into our way. They did not negotiate for us. They just backed us up. So, and it was good to have them. Yeah, we had a meeting. We took it we took it to the membership, and they said they gave us the right to go ahead and do whatever we had to do, and it was brought to the city's attention that we had the International with us, and some of these photos you probably see in here. When the new span of the Dunn Bridge opened, the governor was there, Rockefeller was there, and we were having our problems there. But the representatives from the International, they were there. I got some pictures of that. And they were there and to back us up. The president of it, and then there was Jimmy King, he was from over there. And Frank Palumbo, I think he's from New York. He's a New York City firefighter. He was there. I think we had 3 people. They did back us up, but they did not get into our way. They did not negotiate for us. They just backed us up. So, and it was good to have them.
Now, and then, so what do you request to do with the city, or how do you start trying to negotiate with the city after you have?
Well, then we tried to get some meetings with the city, and on just about every meeting or beginning, we'd sit down, and they had the corporation council there, and the mayor would come out, and most of the time he'd come out of his office, and Bob Lyman was corporation counsel. He represented the city. We come in and say, what do you have? What do you guys want? We said, well, we have some grievances. We have holiday pay. We have this, we have that. And we also, but they didn't go unnoticed. They noticed that the International was in with us. Well, you've brought in another union. Yeah, we did, but we need a backup. So, but anyway, it came to the holidays. Anything else, nothing. They wouldn't listen to us. They wouldn't do anything. They just turned around and walked away. So that went on for, I don't know how long, but the pressure was put on, I guess through ads or something. But finally, we got to sit down, and one of the things that we asked for, that was top of our list, I guess, holidays, 11 paid holidays at the time. Asked the mayor, how come we didn't get the paid holidays? And the mayor says, you didn't ask for them. Well, how about gear? How about raises? How about this? How about that? But he just fought us all the way. They just wouldn't cooperate with us. So we needed, that's when I think we brought in attorney William Rogers. And he was a young attorney out of Boston, and very good guy. And I tell you what, he put it on the line challenging the city and the Corning administration, because people had no idea, how powerful they were then back then. Because we had people that, some of our guys, firemen, their wives were crossing guards, people put in for mortgages. That went down the tubes. Crossing guards lost their jobs. Firemen were driving tow trucks during snow. They were kicked right out of there. Anything to do with the firemen, they were all the Corning made damn sure that everybody was right out of there. So it was after that, I think, after I got, I got the nomination for, not the nomination, the guys asked me if I'd take, third vice president. I looked around and anybody else want it? So, yeah, all right, I'll take it. I didn't know what I was getting into. So, but I don't regret it. But right after that, I had to go to work, I think, with the first or second day after that, go to work, and we had a meeting at the Union Hall, not the Union Hall, the Marine Corps Hall. So naturally, they came over, a couple of guys came over to see McDermott because he was voted the treasurer to get a check to pay for it. So in the meantime, these guys are talking to me. Well, why don't I work with them, Over on this other side of Engine 1 side, there's an acting lieutenant that sees us talking, and he's not for us. He wants to be with the city. I saw him pick up the phone. He was on the phone and he's talking away. So he used to do that. Well, right after that, very, very shortly after that, I get an alarm. We go down on South Person Street, I think it was, somewhere down there. Nothing serious. Well, this same acting lieutenant goes over and talks to Brophy. I get back, pull back in, this guy comes over, he says, Chief Brophy told me, he says, I am now acting captain of this house. It wasn't 25 minutes later, Fitzmaurice pulls up with an extra fireman in his car. He had George Davis driving him at the time, with an extra fireman, which is Charlie Weisenburn. Well, Charlie was a friend of mine. I mean, we worked together in the squadron. And he comes over and he says, Joe, and what? Yes, Chief. He was acting battalion chief at the time. He says, you're being transferred to Engine 3. I said, for what? He said, for the betterment of the department. How is that going to be any better for the department? He said, that's an order. Pack up and get going. He said, so I look, who's taking over the squad? One of my guys? No. He says, Charlie's taking over the squad. Well, Charlie was non-union also. So they put him in charge, which was funny at the time. I'm getting ready to leave. I get my gear. Charlie gets me, psst, psst, hey, Joe, what? How do you operate this? How do you operate that? And the equipment. And that came out at PERB. When we had our meetings with PERB and quizzed everybody, that came out. And it made him look like a complete fool, They just put somebody that didn't know the job there. So I had no idea that when I was going over there would be a 2-year stint that was going up there for, or down there. And I think at the time, Engine 8 was there at the same time. Engine 3, the way I look at it, and why they did it, I think nobody in Engine 3 was on our side. There was a captain up there, and I think there might have been 1 or 2 men for the 3 shifts. I think we had 3 shifts then. And so they sent me there. Must be they're going to break me or something, At least get me out of circulation. I get there, and the captain comes in, welcomes me in open arms. What bunk do you want here? What locker do you want? Holy jeepers, here I am, a king here. But I said, all right, so we took care of business. Well, I asked the guys, how come you guys are not in with us? Well, certain people didn't like Mike. Somebody didn't like another one of the officers. Somebody probably didn't like me. So I say, hey, look, this has nothing to do with personalities. This is our union. This is our future we're looking at for better jobs, better pay, equipment, our gear, everything. This is what it's all about. By the time that shift was over, I had every one of those guys signed up. Not just that shift, the other shifts too. Yeah, and there was a ward leader who used to come over there at night, Jimmy Giblin. I saw him in one of the documents someplace. And he would tell these guys, don't worry about PERB. the PERB is not going to be able to do anything. That's just, they're going to blow away in the breeze. These guys are, and they threatened them, they're going to lose their jobs. And he kept coming there every night, sit there in front of the firehouse with these guys. And some of them believed them, of course, you know. And I told him, I said, you can't believe that, you know, don't believe that stuff. And, this guy's just trying to put shit in your head. I think it would, whenever we got, I think it was 70, yeah, I think it was 70, yeah. Yeah, I think that's about the time we started picketing, because we weren't getting anywhere with them. They would not listen to us, they would hardly sit down with us. And I had to, you know, we weren't really aware at the time, but we found out in a hurry. We were operating under the Taylor Law, which gives us a right to organize public employees. And the Taylor Law was new. I think it was only, I think they said 3 years old. It had never been tested like this. And what we did, it ended up, you know, in the long run it got tested. But yeah, we started picketing. But under the Taylor Law, the city is supposed to look at the fact that we're not supposed to strike, and therefore they're supposed to give a little bit more, you know, but they wouldn't do that. So that's when we started picketing, and even at one time we were in City Hall in Tandem, and we had our picket signs, and I don't know if you know it, but I'm an Indian, I'm American Indian, and so we had the signs, and they're going boom, 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 boom. So I said, all right, so we started doing the war dance in City Hall, and the staff that were up there on the second, well, they're watching, and they're watching us, but we didn't realize right away until afterwards. They had a half a dozen cops downstairs waiting to come in, including the police chief who was there and somebody else in case we got out of hand. So that's how much they thought of us, you know. They're gonna, and they call the cops on us. Well, one of them was for that one particular guy I was telling you about. That one that turned me into the chief, and he was working that day. That's why, and I think I was working that day too. So they came over there to picket to show that our support for that. Yeah, that's what it was. Another thing we did, Tim, along with the picketing, today they got it made, but you know, all this media stuff. But what we did, we decided to have the people go out in their areas, door to door, knock on doors, and ask for the support, in which a lot of guys did. A lot of them did, and I think it paid off. We got a lot of support, but then again, there were some people say support us, but when it push come to shove, they weren't there. But when they talk about strike, well, then they got quite nervous, you know. And speaking of strike, we were talking about having some kind of talking about the strike. So it was getting a little serious at one time. So they said, well, they're going to have outside companies come in, like the volunteer companies come in. So we said, all right, well, we talked about it. We're going to have so many guys on Delaware Avenue, so many guys over in the south end, so many guys over in the north end, and we were going to wait for them. But thank God it never came to that, you know. Most likely, yeah, the picketing was not producing any results. And so that's why, you know, we couldn't. And this is when Nick was really criticizing Mike. He said, you got to do something. You can't do it, you know. And he's pussyfooting around, but he wasn't. Nick is just, like I said, loose cannon. That's what he was, you know. But he's a heck of a guy. But no, Mike was doing it, and I gave Mike credit. I gave him a lot of credit. And, you know, like I said, we didn't always agree on everything, but we stayed together. And you know, I think that's a greatest thing to happen. Us staying together. There's mentions in the write-ups about there's a division within us, and this one wants to take over, that one wants to take over. So no, that didn't happen. So, things did not change. As a matter of fact, prior to that, you know, when they moved me from here and moved Mike and these other guys, things didn't change. They had the upper hand, and we had to, at every step of the law, we had to just defeat them. And then we went up, like I was saying earlier, right up to the appellate division of the state Supreme Court to prove our case. And what they did, they just backed up with the lower court. And well, started with PERB, they backed up PERB, then the county court or whatever it was. And we got us where we were, yeah. Right around that time, yeah, because like I said, I was up there 2 years. I was up in Engine 3, I just remember, I wrote it down. From February 70, or March 70, I think, till February 72 or something like that. I've got the dates, I can
So
email
all
to you.
that time, you were tied up in the courts, basically. You know?
Tied up in court most of the time. We had meetings, and then in the interim, one of the things we brought up to them, we had 7 firefighters that did not pass the exam and they were provisional. That's in one of those. And so they let them go, the city let them go. But the interesting part, one of the guys in there was not one of our union guys. They took him back. His name, it's in there, Thomasone. They took him back, but we could never get the other guys back. We went to see a Supreme Court judge in Kingston. We rode down there. Then finally got a stay by talking to a judge up here in Lake George, and finally came down and they said they couldn't help us. Yeah, they couldn't help. They backed, and then it went to PERB, and PERB backed them, and they said, isn't this what you wanted? You wanted to have permanent appointments, so we're going with the city on this one. So these guys didn't get their jobs back. And one of them was Ray Fish. I don't know if he's still around. He ran the Capital District Ambulance, him and Bob Schaefer. And he had a son that was the same name. And but Ray's a good guy, a good egg. He used to get to me. He kid me about one thing and another. And he'd say, this or what. Oh, no, I forget what he would say. But anyway, I said, what are you talking about? I said, you dumbass, you can't even pass a test. Yeah, we had the meetings, we had the picketing, and like I said, we organizing the guys to go out, knock on doors, and more or less going from firehouse to firehouse, and picking up whatever rumors and keeping the guys in. And that was another thing. They barred us from going to firehouses. They weren't supposed to be there. But once we got all our members signed up, the guys were proud to put their sign right up, 100% union. We didn't have a problem with that. Then we go in, but the other firehouse we didn't. But we did spend a lot of time going around and checking, and we went to some of the association meetings. And like I said, there's some in Buffalo and Troy. And we also like to make mention, in the beginning we had support from Troy, support from Glens Falls, and support from I think Schenectady or Utica, I forget which. These guys came in and supported us, but once everything really blew up, well then, but they help us to get started, to give us a baseline, our next step, just to go right on there, because they were already organized. Like Schenectady they've been a union for some time. The man that come up from Glens Falls, he was a fireman here, but they were an association, they weren't a union. So he filled us in on that. So seemed to be the last city to be union, because they never went. There's some place that's mentioned, I don't know if it's in here, at one time a police department tried to organize, and but they didn't have the Taylor law. And somebody, they named the guy, ratted him out, and he ended up getting the shitty details and everything. The guy ended up quitting. So, the ones that was trying to organize it, but they didn't have the Taylor law to back them. So, that, at least we had the Taylor law, and we knew how. But what I'm going to say that, Tim, when all of these people right here, plus the others who were there, we had an average, I say, about 10 years on the job. Well, you know how it is. You say you got 10 years. You got a lot of time invested. And you have to think hard, like, well, am I going to get this? I've got 10 years. I've got a family, Well, there's no hesitation. The guys just, hey, this is what we want. there's only one way to go. We got to go up. We got to get better working conditions, better equipment. We were buying our turnout gear, guys in the squad, there's some in Engine 1. And I was just comparing it. It was compared to 2 weeks' pay, for Pete's sakes, to buy a turnout coat. We were bringing home $50 a week. $50 a week, and this coat was costing us over $100, so we were paying $3-4 a week, you know. But we weren't getting the holidays, we weren't getting the overtime, we weren't any, you know, you didn't get paid for your out of position work, you know. Things start changing, and we sat down, we started talking, and they respected us like we were human beings, and I think they realized that, you know, we're not going to go away, because it'd be better to sit down and talk to us. And this is something I want to mention. The APPFA, I didn't think it was, you know, I didn't go along with the APP part of it, but it was the APP was for permanent professional, because they said we would not last. So somebody said, we're permanent, we're gonna last, and that's what we want. Fine, that's what they went with. And because that, like I told you, that ward leader there was saying, no, they're not gonna stay, so that's how it went. No, they didn't. Then they started listening to us, and things started to happen. Like it's on that sheet. Then the list came out, and we were able to take the promotion exams. The list came out. I went back to my job as a lieutenant, and some of the others did too. And getting back to that, one of the things that we sat, and I remember I sent you something on that, was the provisional appointments. That was we asked that we be made provisional officers with pay, and all right, they agreed to that. But as you probably see that, they turned around and they appointed 30 some odd people as provisional officers. Out of the 34, I think it was, 4 of them were our union guys. But revenge is sweet. Of the whole friggin' group, there's only about 4 that passed the exam, you know? So. Never got anything back. No, nothing whatsoever. No. Another big, you're talking about pay, big bone of contention is the PERB. I think at one point we had asked for more money, and they had came up with a number of $1,300 pay raise for us. They totally, flatly shot that down, but we ended up winning it. That was another thing that was presented to the courts. We ended up getting that too, so we got that. So all in all, we accomplished a lot, I think, for ourselves and for everybody in that particular era, you know. I lost track of that, Tim, and it was short. I'd give it maybe a year or whatever. And getting back to that, when we weren't, I decided then, when I had that problem, I said, I'm going to go out, and you can ask anybody, hopefully you see Frank Spath. I went out and I said, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to represent the officers. And I went to every firehouse after we get off duty, each and every one of them, and asked them for their support. And I had the support, and then we were going to go with it, you know. And at one point I said, I'll run for president. But it took a lot of our time. I got home. When I was at home, my wife said, well, you know what? You're going to do that, you must as well stay there. Don't bother coming back. So I gave that idea up. But how the transition took place, there was then finally I got him. And I said, and the reason I said we should have the officers separate is because one of these statements that one of these individuals made to me, as a lieutenant at the time, that wait till I get you at the Union Hall. I got the power at the Union Hall, and you're just a member. You're just one of the rank and file. I said, well, here's where we got to separate the men from the boys. Not specifically, but we got to, we can't have that. We can't have a firefighter that's going to have a vendetta against an officer, and the union is going to penalize him. No, that's not going to happen. So we, you know, I was committed to the cause. I'm committed to, you know, and I said I'm certainly not going to give up now. So sure, they needed to be, you know. So now I guess we're tied in, but it should still be, you know. So I can't see where if a guy's a new firefighter or something, and then you got a captain, you go, oh, yeah, well, he's gonna rack your ass because you gave him a dirty detail or something like that, you know, at the firehouse. Because they sent me that letter stating that I'm done, I'm out, completely out. And I look for that letter. I want you to get that too, because the fact that I did not come up with dues when there was a transition that was going to be taking place and where we weren't legally representing.
So for that little bit of time that you didn't pay dues, they said, well, that counts for all time, we're not, so basically it was kind of like almost a grudge almost.
It was.
Okay, forget it.
Yep.
You're out and that's it.
That's it, you're out, yep, yeah. And like I was just telling you, I'm not one that's going to sit back and roll over. And, you know, and I said, because I said in the beginning, I said, this is why I went out and I said, I'm going to go for the representation of the officers, you know. And, but after that, I said, hey, this is what you want, this is what it's going to be. But the thing is, they didn't hurt me that much. And the other thing too, they never took, we had automatic dues deduction. Then they stopped taking, I said, I would have kept on taking my money because they didn't, you know, and I'm not even in the retirees union, none. I'm just blanked right out of it, you know, after all this shit that, you know, that sucked. And the thing that bothered me at the time is the fact that these two individuals were officers. Now, they're not presidents or anything, but they held an office in the union. They were poisoning the other guy's mind, saying, well, he didn't pay his dues. There was no freaking dues to pay. I mean, we couldn't pay, you know. And they threw me out, you know. So, because like I was telling you earlier, I was an officer by then, and I told Woodward, I said, I'm going to pay him. And hold on, I'm going to pay him. And I reached in my pocket, and that's when the guy tells me, no, don't. I was like, he had made up his mind before. He didn't want my money, period. You know, they didn't want my dues. The other officers, I apparently kicked in. Now, to go another step further, I went to PERB with this, and I talked to the hearing officer that heard our case, you know, with our friend, guys in the union, and Harvey Milo, his name was. So I said, here's what happened. I said, am I right or wrong? He said, you're right. He says, but you'd win. He said, well, what's going to cost you for attorney fees? You know? He said, you want to take it? He said, you'll win. He said, there's no doubt you'll win. He said, they weren't right to do that. It was illegal. Now, there's no different than asking the damn bus drivers to pay into our union if we don't represent them, you know?
Yeah.
The same difference, so. Other than, you know, they fired Brophy. That was one thing. They fired Brophy, brought Fitzmaurice in. He was supposed to take care of things, but that's all common knowledge. We finally we started having promotion exams, and we were promoted. I was promoted, and the following year, I think, I had a captain's exam, and I was what, number 8 on the list, I guess, and I was promoted then there too. So after that, I think it was, I don't know, 74 or whatever, John Moran was promoted from battalion chief to deputy chief, and he was in Engine 6, run out of there. So somebody was going to have to fill his shoes. You know, guys were talking. So I came in one morning, and we had a call downtown. Went down there, and getting ready to go back, and Fitzmaurice comes over. He said to me, he said, Joe, tomorrow morning, he said, report to Engine 6. You're going to be, you're going to fill in as acting battalion chief. And he says, on D platoon. I said, okay. So if anybody had a thought that was some type of reward, and no way in hell, none whatsoever, because Well, I was acting battalion chief for about 2.5 to 3 years, I guess. And at one time we had a fire up in 3-alarmer up on Quail Street, some bar up there. And Bill was a friend of mine, Bill Fraley, and they made him training officer. And the guys came to me right at the fire. They said, "He's telling us what to do." He said, "Who are we supposed to?" I said, "No, he's not supposed to. He's just supposed to observe." I said, "I'll take care of it." So I got a hold of Bill. I said, "You don't tell these guys what to do." I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, "I don't give a shit, Bill, what you say." I said, "We'll discuss this with the chief." So the next working day, we got a meeting with Fitzmaurice. Well, I get down there with the reports, and Fraley's in there with the office with Fitzmaurice, and they're talking, and the chief says, "Well, Bill was just telling me what happened, blah, blah." And he says, he said, "Now, what's your story, Joe?" I said, it pissed me off. I said, "First of all, Chief, it's not a story." I said, "This guy going around," I said, "he's giving orders at the fire scene. He has no business doing that. He's just supposed to observe." I said, "Well," I said, "all right, Chief, right here. You want him," and this is the God's honest truth, "you want him in that car, you put him in there. I'll go back to the squad." I said, "I have no problem doing that whatsoever." So, an alarm came in, we took off, and that was it. Because I didn't take any crap, but, it's just, there's no sense in that, I was getting paid for it then. I got the battalion chief's pay. I got the battalion chief's vacation, but I'm not going to kiss ass. There's no way in hell am I kissing ass after all that. And when this was going on, because I was out of the, kicked me out, up in Engine 6, it was not a pleasant place to be. They were sticking broken bottles underneath the tires of the car, the battalion chief's car, writing shit on my locker, doing different things. Wouldn't let me eat with them, and be in the Klondike, so I would eat in the restaurant, eat out. I had Mike Dunn drove me for a while when I first started, and I relieved Warren April Sr. And Warren and I are real good friends because I started with him. And so I think the second day or so, I said, because Walt had asked me to drive, and I said to Warren, I said, "Wait a minute," I dropped him off at his house. I said, "Something I want to clear." I said, "Battalion chiefs, I think battalions get to pick the driver." I said, "If you don't mind, I'll pick my own." He said, "Oh no, that's all right, Joe." He said, "Just not, Mike's a good guy." No, I said, "Fine." I said, "But I got somebody in mind." I said, "Okay." So I picked Walt to drive with, but for his experience, not for Walt. You could write a book about him. But that's the way. But we would eat out, and I would be out on the street. I wouldn't even want to go back to that house about 9 o'clock at night. I go to every firehouse, but this is the crazy part about it, Tim. Every firehouse I'm welcome, but this place, and they just. I don't know, they just poisoned those guys' minds, and nothing was taken into consideration what the hell that we had gone through and what we had done, to give them the right to do this. But I said, all right, that's the way you want to be. And another thing I want to bring up, I got a real shafting. Decided to take the paramedic class. Fine. I'm taking the paramedic. Asked Fitzmaurice, I said, "I think I want to take paramedic class." "Oh, that sounds good." I take the paramedic class. 6 months, at least in my life. I even bought a second little car so I could get good mileage. I'm working every day. I'm running back and forth from up here. Pass everything. I have a good passing grade, 88 something or whatever. We go down for our appointments. But before we went down for appointments, we're going to working on the rigs, and so I'm the senior captain of the shift, or I think all 3 shifts maybe. And the room went, "Well, they're going to have a captain in charge of the paramedic unit." I said, "Well, we can work something out." I say, talking to different guys, and we get down there. And Fitzmaurice says, "You're going here, you're going here," and you, Joe, he said, "You're going back to the squad." Now, why? He said, "We're getting more valuable up there." I said, "Why in the hell didn't you tell me this 6 months earlier? I wasted my friggin' time. I know, all this." I said, "Plus I bought another car, plus I said, I would." So I, more or less then, I made up my mind, I'm leaving. first chance I get. So Freddie's Peters, his old man was in one day, and he came in, we were talking. I said, "The hell with this, Fritz." I said, "I'm getting the hell out of here." He said, "Joe, that's not like you." I said, "After the damn shafting I got," I said, "the first chance I get, I'm getting out of here." So from that injury that I had from the accident, you know, they hit my hand, and that came back again. So I went out and was out for quite a while. And I get a call from Bruce. Fitzmaurice is gone. And he said, "I want to talk to you." So I told my wife, "I'm not taking anything from them." So they got over there. And here's what we have to offer you. We're going to put you under 207A, which is what? He said, "You get full pay and goodbye." I took it and I said, "I'm gone." Yeah, I'm gone. I say, I would have stayed, Tim. I would have, because I really would have probably. When I left there, I went up in this area here in Washington County. I got in, well, we started an organization, the Fire Investigators. I was in there for 5 years. Then in the town that I'm in, I got elected as a commissioner, fire commissioner of the fire districts. Yeah, 5 commissioners. I got in there 2 terms, didn't accomplish nothing because I was the only one that wasn't a volunteer fireman with that group. But it was, so, 40 years of my life, that's all I wanted, that's all I wanted to do. And I could have done the same thing in Albany. But there was no future there because I just, after a while, when I got put on a pumper for a while, I knew absolutely nothing about a pumper. I got the books, cracked out the books, studied, worked with it, and within, I think, less than a year, we were up to school and I was teaching pump operations and stuff. I said, so I just never sat around and, I wanted to better myself and better the department, basically. We're on the payroll, that's all, yeah. That was another thing we asked for. Extra pay for EMTs, extra pay for paramedics. No, nothing doing, but to get it now, I guess. No, they wouldn't give us any extra money whatsoever. And I don't know if it's been brought up to you that the paramedic program owes a lot, the firemen, an Albany firemen owe a lot to Billy Hummel. Oh yeah, he was in there and the guys busted on him. They bought him a little doctor's case and then didn't want for his birthday or something. Then they were busting out. But it wasn't in back then. So I'll give you another instance where we're in jeopardy in the squad in the whole damn department. I'm working, and I think it's about that era when Billy first came on, realizing that on the squad we're going doing extrications, we're doing patching up people, first aid and all that. None of us have any training, or we're just doing it on our own. No certification or nothing. So I bring it up to Fitzmaurice, the chief. I said, "You know what? We have to have certification." I said, "We got to get in here, teach us first aid." And when we went with the basic, advanced, and all, and for what? I said, "Because I can be sued." Well, I said, "And you can be sued." I said, "And the city can be sued." I said, "We don't have any qualification whatsoever, so we're just doing it on the wing and a prayer." And this was his answer. "All right, well, you get them, you set it up, and I'm not paying them for any of their time they come in." So I had to set up the schedule, the guys that were working, and then the guys that come in like for their checks and stuff like that on the payday, come in and got the training and worked that out that way. And some guys just volunteered, come in on their time just so they could get it. You got no cooperation, none whatsoever. It was, I don't know, it was just a ball buster. The media was very good with us. I know that some of them were just selling papers, but this guy, Freddie McKinney, he was a photographer with the newspapers, and we turned out to be real good friends. And he was there at every meeting. He gave us a lot of coverage. Matter of fact, when we used to have meetings at night in Albany, he lived in Clifton Park, had me stay in their house because I had to go to work the next morning, so I didn't have to all the way back up here. But they did an awful lot for us. They put a lot out there in the paper for us, and he turned out to be a real good friend. But the city they couldn't stand him. They just didn't, because more or less, he was rooting for us. But anything that Yeah, they call it politics. Well, I told you the one time they're picketing outside City Hall, and we're in there, and somebody wants by with a picket, and it says we love mushrooms. He said, "Look at that! They're all Republicans." That's the mayor, mind you. Washington Avenue. Washington Avenue, yeah, and going up the extension, exit 2, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's, is that where you sustained that injury?
Yeah, and that's where, well, we were responding to, I think it was Teresa House. There was a fire, actually, we didn't find out till afterwards. A woman died in that fire. It was her overstuffed chair that caught fire. I think it was Teresa or the Doris Cicero, one of those two. But we never made it, and this girl pulled out. And so then we stopped. I mean, the truck was a mess. We had, Barbagallo was my driver. Warren Averill was one of the crew, and Kenny McGurfey was one of my crew. And we used to carry the wheel block right behind here on the engine cover there. That thing went right through the windshield, came right through between Joe and I. Joe was momentarily knocked unconscious. We over there, and Joe was right slumped over the wheel like that. So got everybody out of there, and the battalion chief, Dan Doherty, come along and stopped, and then they went on to see that we're okay. Didn't realize we're really hurt that bad. We went to the hospital and just to be checked over for vitals, but they never actually took x-rays or anything, because I found out years later I had a broken bone in this foot, something with my knee, and then my shoulder and elbow. And I had to sustain a series of shots afterwards, you know. And I was out, I don't know, 30 some days. I went back, I pushed the doctor. I said, I want to go back to work. I want to go back to work. So I went back to work. Well, then I'm finding out I can't hang on to a damn tool. Everything I grab, I didn't have any strength. So I go to the fire department doctor. They want me to go there. Well, you can go back to work. I said, how come this other guy said I can't? Well, you can go back to work. I said, I'm going to ask you a question, doctor. What's that? I'm climbing a ladder. I said, with an axe in my hand. Would you walk underneath that ladder? I said, well, I'm right up there. He shook his head. Okay. I was there for that. Matter of fact, I was just finished the paramedic training. I was sent to Engine 11, or Rescue 11, to do, so many hours, 24 hours or whatever. And I forget who was there, but the alarm came in, and we went down there. Well, I got down there, and these guys there. Well, I found myself, I joined forces with the squad, and I did a lot of work, and there's one case I can emphatically say that Fitzmaurice was lost. He did. Tim, just prior to that, I had read about maybe 3 to 6 months earlier in the fire engineering that they had a similar situation in Philadelphia. And they got the berms around the tanks to contain the product and the water. Guys got in there, gas was in there, flashed over, and they lost, I don't know, was it 3 or 6 or whatever. Well, I'm running around setting up lines and working for everybody, and everybody that came to it say to me, what did I do? I said, he's the chief over there. He said, well, he told us to see you. Somebody's coming in with extra hose from Mountain Line District. Where do you want us? I said, he's the chief. He told me to see you. Red Cross is coming down with some other. What do you want? And I kept repeating the same thing. He said, told us to see you. And so anyway, I told Fitzmaurice, I said, Chief, you cannot leave those guys in there. I said, they had a situation in Philadelphia. I explained to him. All right, well, get them out of there. Honest to God, it wasn't a half hour later, that friggin' thing went right across like that. I said, but he, but at least I was there and I enjoyed what I was doing because I knew something about it,
Yeah.
And I've got a photo there, one of these in here, one of the scenes there, and John Hilson is, he was there, he was with the squad that day, and the one blew, and we were taking care of that. Then the second one, we thought we had it under control, And then I was talking to a detective, and he said, "How we doing? You got under control?" I said, "If I was you, I didn't have to be here. I'd be up in Loudonville Hill. That's where I would be." About 5 minutes later, I'm right over there by the second tank, and that freaking thing let go. And I got a picture, and that ball of fire went up about, I'd say, 300 feet. And I remember Hilson was there, and he started running. He said, "My Cap," he says, "my portable, fuck your portable." I said, "Just go." And then I turned around and I looked, and that thing was right over me. And all I'm thinking, I said, "This is going to come down on me as napalm or something." And I'm thinking to myself, legs don't fit me now. I'm telling you, I thought I bought the farm. But fortunately, the product, there's so much heat up there, I guess the black and white photos on here, but it was all red and black, and that consumed the product up there. But that was a touch. And then we hear a call that one of the engine companies is down by the river, and Fitzmaurice calls me. He said, "Captain, go down there and see what their problem is." I go down there, "What's the matter?" They said, "We can't get out." I said, "Why?" He said, "The gate is locked and the river's back here." Disconnect that friggin', and they were hooked up, I think, with a 3-inch line. I said, "Chop that bastard right off." They chopped it, and I got on the back step. I said, "Charge right through that gate." And we went charging right through that gate. Thing had a chain, and that thing went flying, and we got out of there. I said, "Anybody else? And get them on." I stopped and got somebody else and told me to get out of there. And tied in with this, about 2 weeks later, Bob Schaefer and I did a whole inspection of the port and submitted it to the chief. I'll come up with it, and I'll email it to you or something. Recommendations of what we could do in the future. And Tim, I don't think they've ever done anything since. Number one that we found out, we didn't know, is you go down into the port, and we came into this area. It used to be a diner right here, somewhere. Right on this pole, they showed us there's this master switch. Let's shut the power off to the whole damn port area. Had we known that. The lines weren't marked. You had lines that are marked in red. Well, I said, well, we thought, and not just myself, other guys, well, that's for firefighting. Well, that was gasoline and those freaking things. Instead of having to mark gasoline, gas, and the water lines and everything. And one of the recommendations we made that they have special teams, 2 teams, trained with proximity suits and be familiar with the layout and everything, all the shut-offs. Put more gates down there so all our engine companies could get out of there, and have some monitors set up in different areas. Some of them operate remotely, On the drilling there, we used to have to, the battalion chiefs, I don't know, they still go around. Every day, go check on the firehouse. They had to drill an hour, one way or the other. Well, I'll never forget this one time going to Engine 9, Ladder 4. We got the Smith brothers. I got Phil Smith and Wally Smith. I don't know if you know them or not, but yeah. So all I had to do was tell Walt, he write it down. I said, "What are you guys drilling on?" Well, one's sitting on the desk, and the other guy's, "Oh, what are we drilling on, Wally? Ha, ha, ha." And they got a Penthouse magazine and all that. So I look, I said, "What are you drilling on? Give me something, Ah, I said, "Okay, Walt." I said, "Come on, let's go." Went straight out down the street. I forget the street in the end. I got a hold of the dispatcher, and I said, "Send Engine 9 down here to meet me." So out they come. "What's going on?" "You're going to stretch 300 feet at 2.5. You're going to hook up." I worked their ass off. But the only thing that saved them, a fire call came in. I went back there after. I said, "Next time, you're going to have something for me to write down." I said, "You're not going to give me this bullshit. You're looking at the Penthouse magazine, and you're going to cover your ass that way. So it's not going to happen." We used to have, as the squad, when we had the drill yard on Van Wart Street, we had to go down there every day. The squad did. Every day we stayed there, right from morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We had to help them set up with the net. We had a big heavy thing. We have, with all the evolutions, we helped going up the scaling ladders, the Pompier ladders. And we were stupid enough, myself and another guy that's in the squad, he was at the mansion, there's Tommy Druval, him and I, well, both young then. We even went to the point where we're switching from one ladder to the other, grabbing a hold of it and swinging over like that on the 7th floor, I think it was. But we did, we did a lot of stuff. We learned a lot, and we had some good. Dick Fleming was a real good instructor, battalion chief. We're down there one day, and we used to, if we had a working fire, we'd take our call from there. Well, Engine 2 happens to be down there from Lark Street. I call for there, so we take off. We're the first one on the scene. Tim, there's 2 houses going. Some guy comes running up to me. He says, do something, there's my house. Get some water on that. I said, sir, I said, we don't have any water on this truck. He said, what kind of is this anyway? I felt about that. Walt pulled a good one on me one night in the middle of the night. We're in the 6. A fire over on, I think it's Clinton Avenue, I think it was, in Hawk in that area. So normally we went out to Washington Avenue over Lark and then around that way. Well, straight across over Swan, there's a state parking lot. Get right in there. I said, where are you going? We'll go right out here, it's a lot quicker. Well, we get in there, we can't get out. The friggin' gate's locked and we can't. I'm looking over there and the place is just shooting. I'm on there. Have Engine 7 come down. Have the ladder coming. Walt said, wait, I said, I'm trying to cover up. I said, you asshole. I said, you got me in this predicament.